Back on MorningLine, our final segment with Professor Schwartz over at Vanderbilt University, talking some politics with you. And we have another caller that waited through the break, Professor. We'll go to Judy. Hi, Judy. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Hey, what's on your mind?
Well, listening to the program this morning and about the all the money plans that they have and not getting it done. When you overpay people to stay home, even though they may need some money, but a lot of them, with the $600 and the $275 with the state, don't even make half of that on their regular jobs. And there are signs out there daily for people to work. They just don't want to come back to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you were echoing one of the last callers. That's what's interesting to me is that the president chose to address the unemployment issue to some degree here with this. But really, I think the larger issue, because I think there's a lot of Americans, just like this woman who called, who said, the unemployment, there may be some, obviously, who could still benefit from that. But the larger picture for many Americans is getting some kind of stimulus payment again. And he didn't really address that. And that seems to be the focus of what maybe Congress may or may not do, Professor.
Yes, and that is really the problem, is that he can't really do that. He can work, he has managed to do something on the unemployment by shifting funds from FEMA, and the payroll tax he had authority to defer. So he has some possibilities, but there are limits to his authority. And, technically in the Constitution, and well, not just technically, legally, the Congress is the source for funding.
Hey, by the way, the president did say, if elected too, he might consider doing away with the payroll tax. And I just wondered if you can tell me what he means by this. My understanding is that the payroll tax is kind of what comes out and goes into Social Security. Is he talking about getting rid of Social Security?
No.
Okay, so what would that mean? What would that mean if he got rid of the payroll tax? How would money still go into Social Security, or is that a separate fund? Just so I have a handle on that.
Yeah, there's Social Security, and there's also payroll taxes that are taken out on the presumption of what you owe in taxes. And he's been advocating, of course, a reduction in that. The Social Security tax is separate from that payroll tax on your check.
Okay, I'm sorry, and I'm glad you clarified. I just wanted to be clear. I wasn't sure because there's so much being pulled out of our check, right? And so I wanted to double check on that. Let's go to Mike. Mike, good morning. Hi, Mike.
Good morning to you, Nick, and your guest. I just want to say that you got a lot of people complaining about the extra $600 that some of the people are getting during the what I call the Trump virus. The thing is, a lot of people have been underpaid starting back really back from the 70s, and the wages have been stagnated. Economists on both sides of the aisle will admit that wages have been stagnated for years. The fact that we have companies like Amazon, Kroger, which is now the #1 largest retailer of groceries, would take away $2 of hazard pay for people who have been working in dangerous situations, could have very well have contracted COVID. Now they took those back. For a long time, people have been underpaid, and for them to finally get a little bit of that back, I have no problem with. And we should be ashamed as a nation when we have these Amazon, these multi-billion-dollar companies that won't pay these people a decent living wage.
Yeah,
and that's why you have companies like Advanced Cash America, Speedy Cash, because people need to go to these places because they're just not making enough money. And once they go to these places, they're basically tied in with a legal mobster type operation.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I don't doubt what he's saying about some of the wages and such, but addressing it through the unemployment. And by the way, when it comes to the extra $600 in Tennessee, I mean, considering Tennessee's maximum you get is $275 a week, okay, I get it. But like you said, Professor, it varies from state to state, and Tennessee is one of the lower unemployment states in the country.
Yes, yeah, that is really, in some parts of the country, wages are pitifully low, and the minimum wage has not been raised legally, the federal minimum wage, for years. And that's why you've had, of course, this movement toward the $15 minimum wage as a a national effort.
Sure. All right, real quick, let's talk just about what we expect to hear. It looks like here we are now in August. Is this typically the time that candidates running for president, once they're clearly the nominee for their party, makes the announcement for their vice presidential candidate? I guess I should know that thinking back, but when does that announcement usually come? We expect it from Biden now, and who do you think it'll be?
Well, the typical, of course, time for announcing the running mate is, of course, when the conventions were postponed this year and moved later. And so that gave Biden additional time to consider his running mate. And I would expect this week he'll make the announcement because the convention is next week. Even if it's virtual, he's got to have the nominee ready by that point. So I expect him to make the announcement this week. If you want my guess, and remember that I picked President Clinton in 2016, so don't put too much in it. But my guess would be that he will pick Kamala Harris. I make that guess, even though there are strong arguments for many of the other figures on the list. I think he's going to pick her in part because of the relationship she had both with his son, Beau, as when they were attorney general, and the fact that she ran for president, she's gone through this process, and she fits many of the criteria that Biden's looking for.
And let's talk just a bit about what that criteria is. Okay, obviously, African-American, woman, California, those are all biggies, right? What are the checks on the list that she really fills in?
Well, she's certainly the ones you mentioned, but I think also the fact that she's been in the Senate, that she's been tested. I think he also obviously has to look at, given that he'll be 78 when he's inaugurated, he has to look at someone who could potentially take charge that is a future president. I think in that sense, there is a sort of tension there because on the one hand, he wants to pick someone who can be president. On the other hand, he doesn't want to pick someone who's going to show him up or assert leadership over him. So it's sort of a mix. But I think he will, in the end, have to pick someone he's comfortable with, that can assume the presidency, that he feels is confident and able to do so. And I think in that case, it does help that she has run for president.
That's interesting. So he would be 78 if he were to win when he's sworn in. Mm-hmm. President Trump would be
70. He's 74 now.
74. So mm-hmm. We're looking at two of the oldest presidents in history, however this works out, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I mean, Ronald Reagan was 69, and that was thought to be old in 1980 when he became president. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. And we've heard that President Trump has kind of talked about the debates and where they're going to add them and how they're going to do them. What are your mm-hmm. thoughts on how the debate's going to work out? Will some of these be done virtually? Or you imagine the candidates will be, or the president and Joe Biden will be in a room, obviously socially separated. Of course, there won't be a live crowd, I guess. How will they do that, you think? And how many do you think we'll see?
That, I think, can depend on where the pandemic is in October. For example, if they were to have an event at Belmont, like it's expected mm-hmm. in October, right now, given circumstances here, they probably would have to keep out a live crowd, and they would have to have it socially distanced. I think Biden will, in the end, have to debate. I don't think he can, as some of people have been urging him, ignore the debates. But there could be a virtual debate. There could be circumstances that make it very different from past presidential debates. And that is something I think we still, the progress of the pandemic and the way in which it will affect the various states where the debates are scheduled is certainly going to be on the table.
And usually it's the incumbent that's maybe more willing to say, let's pass on the debates. But talk about the strategies here. It sounds to me clearly like President Trump wants to seek out the debates and have them, and have at least 4. And Biden, I think, is, you're right, going to agree to do them. But why would you say that he's been encouraged maybe not to do as many?
Oh, well, I think because he's leading. He's leading substantially in the polls now. The Real Clear Politics has it between 7% and 8%. And incumbents and those favored generally don't like to have the debates because the debates can lead to a certain amount of uncertainty. You could make a gaffe. Joe Biden has in the past made mistakes when he was making comments and that, and Trump could jump on it. The debates are... we have occasionally probably given too much importance to what they do to the election. But given how the trends in the country, one of the few things President Trump might do to reverse his electoral prospects would be the debate. So that's why he's so insistent on wanting them.
All right. And when do you think we'll start seeing a lot of those political ads, or have they started running? I'm talking about for the presidential race.
They've certainly started running on the cable networks.
Okay. I guess I've seen some, but I mean,
yes.
I guess I just talk about, and I probably in Tennessee we won't see it to the level we did in this recent Senate primary, will we?
No, because Tennessee is really thought to be a red state fairly solidly. So we people who are on the border, say with North Carolina, would get a lot because North Carolina is a battleground state, and so that. But I don't think we'll see quite as much. Although the as I say, the national cable networks are getting lots of ads already.
And just talking about, as we wrap things up here, the big issues when it comes down to a race like this, as with every presidential election, economy. But I think against that as well will be how the American public perceives the status of the coronavirus, the way it's been handled, and where we are, and what maybe changes within the next 3 months.
Absolutely. No, I think the virus right now is the number one issue. The economy is, of course, attached to the virus in the sense that the virus was the key reason the economy tanked. So, yes, that'll be the central issue, and the president, that's going to be a tough one for him.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Well, listen, Professor, as always, love talking to you. Thank you for coming on with us this morning, and we'll talk more as this thing heats up, and I wish you well. You take care of yourself.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you much, sir. Thank you. All right. That's Professor Schwartz over at Vanderbilt. We'll let him go now. We'll take a break, and I'll come back with a programming note about tomorrow right after this. Stay with us.